Hello and welcome back to Parc Fermé Parlay with Kieran Downey. I am at a loss for words for what we've just witnessed. The Qatar Grand Prix. Listen, I fully expected the Qatar Grand Prix to be a little bit boring, especially when the race started. I was like, this is going to be just a bit dull, isn't it? It's going to be a bit dull. And then Alex Albon's wing mirror flew off. The FIA went full Michael Massey, and the whole race just descended into complete chaos. Absolute chaos. It's been relentless. It has actually been relentless. I would say since the qualifying session finished, today has been relentless. We obviously had Max's penalty. The F1 Academy race completely cancelled because there was a crash. There was damage to the barriers. The F2 race got postponed. That was crazy as well. A couple of safety cars in there. And then the F1 race was just, as I said, started off a little bit dry and then just went full tilt, off the rails. I'm exhausted trying to keep up with it all. And it's still happening. There's still news coming out. Be keeping an eye on that just in case anything does come out whilst we were recording. My God, what an absolutely mental race. This race did get the full Michael Massey treatment, didn't it? The FIA was a complete mess today. Was a complete and utter mess. And oh boy, do we have a lot to talk about. Pretty much for everyone, because everyone had a bit of a mental race. Right, everyone had something going on. Right, so let's kick things off, because as I said, we've got a lot to talk about. So let's just dive right into it. Kevin Magnussen qualified 10th, finished 9th. Magnussen is one of the few drivers that didn't really have any issues. He kind of had an all right time out there. In fact, to be fair, he had a little bit of wheel-to-wheel combat with Alonso in the pits. You heard that right, wheel-to-wheel combat with Alonso in the pits. I believe Magnussen was making his way down the pit lane and Alonso just kind of cut out. And they rather than one let the other go, they just went side by side straight down the pits, which apparently they can do. There's due to how wide the pit is, they were all right. Just very lucky that there was no crew running around out there. And then he did get pushed wide by Alex Albon and probably had a radio message that I very much enjoyed. He was pushed wide by Alex Albon at turn 1. And on the next lap, managed to get past Albon and gave a nice little FU down the radio. Do you know what? An all right time for Magnussen. Nice to be scoring some points, especially with the fight for 6th really heating up in the championship. We've only got one race left. It is so close, that battle between RB, Haas and Alpine. Alpine just managing to get in front of Haas. Well done to Magnussen for a quite decent race out there. His teammate, however, was not as lucky to be scoring points. Nico Hülkenberg qualified 18th, did not finish. Nico had a terrible time out there today, didn't he? He had an absolute shocker right from getting off the line. Turn 1, got a puncture, actually ended 2 drivers' races, completely his fault. He lost the rear of the car going into turn 1 and tapped Ocon, who then took out Colapinto. He himself actually managed to continue racing. He only had a puncture, so he was back into the pits to get that fixed. He had actually started on hard tyres, and I was kind of hoping to see a little bit of like a great effort from Hülkenberg just to really go long on those hard tyres. But unfortunately wasn't going to be the case. And then after one of the safety car restarts was just in the gravel. Just again lost the rear of the car. I don't know whether it was the tyres didn't have grip in them. Well, they obviously didn't have grip in them because he lost the rear of the car and just spun off into the gravel and put him out the session. So really a tale of two halves down at Haas this weekend, with one driver DNFing and the other scoring a couple of points. So mixed bag, and they are probably the two drivers that we don't really have much else to say. Because the rest of the field was so chaotic. Now, moving on to a team that I am very happy to talk about this week. What a change it is to actually be smiling whilst we talk about the Cyber drivers. Valtteri Bottas qualified 13th, finished 11th. Fantastic work from Valtteri Bottas out there today. So close. So close. I thought we were on for double Cyber points, and we were so close, but there was no way that Valtteri Bottas could defend against Lando Norris. Lando Norris had pace when he was fighting in that very final stint of the race, and there was no way that Bottas would be able to defend against him. I don't even think Bottas put up much of a fight. But what I will say, thank God, it's like they turned the Cyber on this week, and that we've just been running on fumes for a year. Because in the penultimate race of the season, it's like they both just came alive. And it was so good to see them in the fight. In the fight. It's so nice to be sat here being like, come on, Cyber. And an even better race for Zhou Guanyu, who qualified 12th, finished 8th. That man scored points. Zhou Guanyu actually scored points. Oh, it's so nice. I'm so happy for him. Thank God. Now I just need Valtteri Bottas to score some points next week, because my biggest fear was that Cyber was going to have a completely pointless campaign this year, and that was quite depressing. And then I got very excited that we were going to get double points, and they've come quite close to it so far this year of scoring points, and they've just always kind of missed out. And then I thought, my God, their first points finished. They're both going to get it. Unfortunately for Valtteri, as I said, just couldn't compete with Lando Norris, which it's no fault of his own. It's Lando Norris in a McLaren, and Valtteri Bottas is in a Sauber. Like, there's no way that doesn't go the way it's went. It's so good that they're getting some points. 4 points in the bag as well. Like, they're still going to finish last. However, it does mean that Zhou Guanyu I think he's now ahead of Liam Lawson in the championship. Isn't that mental? And this finish also means that Valtteri Bottas is not actually last. He is now ahead of Logan Sargent. Thank God. We were running out of time there for that one. Amazing, amazing work from both the Sauber drivers. I am very excited to see. I don't know what happened this weekend, because this wasn't supposed to be a Sauber track. Like, it just wasn't really supposed to be a track that really suited their car. Am I right in saying that? If I'm wrong, let me know. But I generally thought that this was, Vegas was quite a good chance for them because of the heavy, the long straights, and they were quite good down a straight. But I mean, there's quite a few fairly long straights in Qatar, and maybe their strength is a medium high speed circuit with no heavy braking zone. But then Vegas also had medium to high speed corners. I don't know. It was fucking amazing watching the Cybers out there. It was really enjoyable, actually. So well done, Zhou Guanyu, for scoring points, and well done to Valtteri Bottas for coming very, very close. We will see what happens in Abu Dhabi, but I do think 4 is the lot for them, I'm afraid. I don't know if they're going to be able to do anything next week. But, hell, this year has shown that anything can happen, because it was crazy out there. All right, moving on to Liam Lawson, who qualified 17th, finished 14th. Lawson had a terrible time out there. He had, I think, an all-right race start. When the restart happened after the first safety car, he spun off at the restart. It was a very brief yellow flag, got himself running again. He always just was kind of chilling down the back of the grid, to be honest with you. He did also get a 10-second penalty for causing a collision with Valtteri Bottas. Just a pretty poor effort from Liam Lawson. And to be fair, actually, a pretty poor effort from both of the V-Carb drivers. Yuki Tsunoda qualified 14th, finished 13th. A pretty shocking outing for both of the V-Carb drivers. Never really properly in the fight, never really in the contention for any points. Just thoroughly disappointing. I actually would say that the results from the Sauber drivers would be what I expect from the Racing Bull drivers. And I don't know, I just see, when I think about Liam Lawson, do I think Liam Lawson will be on the grid next year? I don't know. Like, I don't know. I'm assuming he will be in a V-carb. I'm not too sure why they haven't signed him up yet. But then Christian Horner's also pretty happy with Isaac Hadjar, so do they maybe give him a chance? Like, I'm not too sure. And the Perez situation, we'll come on to that in a minute because there was some comments made by Horner about Perez after the race. But I just don't know if Liam is doing a lot to secure a seat. I mean, I suppose he's had 2 points finishes in his how many races has he done now? 5? And in the 5 races that he's done back, yes, because he had 6 altogether. In the 5 that he's done back, he's had 2 points finishes, I believe it is. So not terrible. Yeah, just a pretty poor performance out there. Yuki Tsunoda, just a rare performance that he's not really performing that well. And this will be one of those ones that Helmut Marko uses as an excuse as to why he can't get the Red Bull seat. Helmut Marko has very openly said that Yuki Tsunoda is not consistent enough to be granted a Red Bull seat, and maybe his temperament isn't quite there. Who else are you going to have drive that car then? I mean, as I said, the Perez situation, I don't know. It's just all very confusing, but it won't do him any favours in his bid to get to Red Bull, because that will be used against him, especially from the likes of Helmut Marko. Yeah, so both RB drivers just having a bit of a terrible time out there this weekend. Another driver who had an absolute shocker, Franco Colapinto, qualified 19th, did not finish. My God, I feel so bad for Colapinto because he was completely innocent and he was out at the first turn. Lights out, away we go, and as I said, Hülkenberg clipped Ocon, which sent Ocon spinning into Colapinto and just ruined his race. Took him out, DNF'd. God, I felt so bad for him. One, I felt bad for him because he is completely innocent in that. He did nothing wrong. It's a lap 1, turn 1. He is going for it. He's down the outside. He should have been fine. But there was just obviously that incident between Hülkenberg and Ocon that just resulted in him getting taken out as well. Again, man, I feel really bad for them Williams mechanics. I feel really, really bad for the Williams mechanics. It's just every weekend there's something going wrong at the moment, and I feel so bad for them. Like, see, when Logan Sargent had got dumped, I thought, oh, here we go. It's all looking up. Like, after going through like a year and a half of crashes and bad performances and all the negative stuff that happened with Logan Sargent when he was there, and Alex Albon wasn't entirely clean as well, let's put that out there. To then have Franco Colapinto come in and be like, yes, here we go, it's going to get better, and it's all just falling apart right now, hasn't it? It's all just falling apart. The only thing that makes it ever so slightly better is it actually wasn't Colapinto's fault. It's not like he has crashed into barriers or anything this time. It is a very unfortunate accident, and I feel quite bad for the young Argentine driver. His teammate didn't have a great time either. Alex Albon qualified 16th, finished 15th. Do you know what? As much as Alex Albon had a pretty poor race, we wouldn't have gotten the drama we got without him. Let's be quite frank, because it was Alex Albon's wing mirror that flew off down the main straight and caused a whole mess and carnage and drama and everything that you will remember from this Grand Prix. Now, apart from his wing mirror being the devil probably to quite a lot of people this Sunday, his only other real thing of note is that he got a 10-second time penalty for causing a collision of Magnussen, which resulted in Magnussen's lovely radio message when he overtook him a lap later. I think it was just a bit of a shocker out there for Albon. Oh, he also got hit by Lance Stroll in the opening lap. I think it was also in turn 1. He got tagged by Lance Stroll, sent them both spinning. Thankfully, he did manage to get back going and came home 15th, which I believe is last. Yeah, he was last. He came home last. So a DNF and a plum last for Williams. Not quite the the result they would have been looking for. My God, I bet Williams is just looking forward to this year being over. I bet the drivers, I don't know where Franco Colapinto's going, but I bet the drivers, the mechanics, James Vowles, I bet they're all just so ready for this year to be over. They're actually having to borrow, what was it? They had to borrow something from Mercedes. Was it suspension? They had to borrow suspension or something from Mercedes because they literally don't have the parts anymore. Like, they literally don't have parts to put on the cars. That's how bad these crashes have been recently. So I'm not surprised that they're not doing great in terms of quality or in terms of the race. So obviously his 10-second time penalty will not have aided in that because I don't remember him serving it in the pits. But very poor result all round for Williams. Now, a driver who had a markedly better time is Pierre Gasly, who qualified 11th, finished 5th. Great, mega drive. Well done, Pierre Gasly. Scoring points, phenomenal. Single-handedly jumping Alpine back above Haas in the constructors' fight. Solid points haul for him, doing a phenomenal job. That's all I really have to say about Gasly. He had a beautiful overtake on Yuki Tsunoda, which was lovely to see. He did actually, I was a little bit concerned at one point because he did actually just outbrake himself and just went clean off the track. I think it was into turn 1, but thankfully it didn't cause himself too much bother. Still managed to retain that sort of mid-points position. So well done, Pierre Gasly. It's nice to see the Alpine kind of turn it around. I don't know what's happening down there either, but these last few races, they've just kind of switched. And I mean, obviously, Vegas was very unfortunate. He had a fantastic qualifying, but obviously a reliability issue just kind of ruined his race. Brazil was phenomenal and his second best finish of the year. So, well bloody done to Pierre Gasly. Absolutely brilliant. Loved watching him out on track today. Also, that pink Alpine is gorgeous out on track. It is so stunning. Like, this is what I want. I want these kind of liveries. I want bright and colourful. I don't want just all carbon black. His teammate, however, has not had a great weekend. Esteban Ocon qualified 20th, did not finish, and has been fired from the team. Yeah, you heard that right. Esteban Ocon has been fired. So let's talk about his race quickly. Over within the first corner. He was obviously the one that was caught by Nico Hülkenberg. He went into the side of Colapinto and both their races was ruined. Out, DNF'd. Now, within minutes of the checkered flag, it was reported that Esteban Ocon would be leaving the team and would be replaced by Jack Doohan, basically effective immediately, and that he wouldn't be taking part in Abu Dhabi and that Doohan would be replacing him. Now, this was very much a rumour at first and has since been confirmed. It was confirmed by Ted Kravitz, who actually went and spoke to the guys down at Alpine. And it was confirmed that Esteban Ocon had went to Flavio Briatore requesting permission for him to take part in the post-season test with his new team, Haas. And I believe the conversation went, of course. However, if you do that, you do not race next week and I will put Jack Doohan in. And Esteban said, well, no worries. And that is Esteban Ocon out of the 2024 season and no longer racing with Alpine. That is his career with them over. He will obviously be in Abu Dhabi because he will be doing the post-season tests with Haas, as I've said. But quite bizarre to make that kind of ultimatum. It's a very odd decision to make at this time. Now, listen, we've got one race left and it'd be lovely to get Jack Doohan in the car, to give him a run round, get him in a race in an F1 car and, you know, almost prepare him for next year. That's fine. That's not what my issue is. What my issue is, you are in a very close fight with two other teams for P6 in the championship. You're in a fight with RB and with Haas. You've just managed to jump Haas. Do you believe it wise? Well, they obviously do, but I struggle to see where. I think it's quite a risky game to take a rookie and put him in at this point when you're in that fight. Now listen, we've seen rookies stepping in for drivers throughout this season. We've seen Franco Colapinto step in. He has done a great job. He's been scoring points, albeit not recently. Liam Lawson was obviously great when he stepped in last year, and when he stepped in again, point scorers. Oliver Behrman stepping in for Carlos Sainz back in Saudi Arabia. Again, managed, God, Saudi Arabia, it doesn't even seem like it was that long ago, but it was all the way back at the beginning of the year. Jesus. But he went on and got P7. So there is every chance that Jack Doohan will get into the car and will have a fabulous time out there and potentially score some points. That I would love. But I do think it is quite a risky game for Alpine to essentially fire one of their very experienced drivers and to put in a rookie at the very last time. They obviously see it being that Pierre Gasly is more than capable of going out and scoring some very decent points to help in their championship fight. Whether or not they're expecting Jack Doohan to get points, I don't know. I don't know whether they're just going to use it almost as a testing session for him and just get him used to being in the F1 machinery in a race setting and all of the minutiae that goes on in a Formula One weekend. Is that a word? Yeah, all of the minutiae of the Formula One weekend. So it'll be very interesting to see how Jack Doohan gets on. Like, it's a very early signifier of what he might be like next year. I mean, granted, he's literally going to have a week to prepare to be in this car. A bit more time than some drivers have been given, but they can see where his strengths and weaknesses lie so that when, the season ends and they've got a few months off in the off season before the 2025 season starts, to really hammer in on where his weaknesses lie and sort of iron them out so that when he gets into the 2025 season, he's a bit more of a rounded driver. So to be fair, it's only positive for Jack Doohan, but I do think it is maybe a bit of a risky game. But that's it. Ta-ra, Esti Besti. See you next year in Haas. Well, we'll see you in the post-season test, but ta-ra for now. All right, next up is Lance Stroll, who qualified 15th, did not finish. I'll tell you what, the Aston Martins were all over the gaff today, to be honest with you. They were struggling out there. Lance Stroll got a 10-second time penalty for his collision with Alex Albon. He actually peeled into the pits as the penalty was going to retire the car. But a very smart move from Aston Martin, actually, just to send him back out to do another lap. So he would basically serve his penalty, off he goes round, and then bring him back in and retire the car, purely so that the penalty doesn't get carried over to Abu Dhabi next week. We've seen it happen multiple times. I think there was actually, what was it? I remember in Mexico last year, Perez got handed a penalty for causing a collision, I think, on lap 1, and he had already retired, and so they stuck a pair of boots on him and sent him back out so he could serve his penalty so that it wasn't carried forward. So very smart move by Aston Martin there. I think it was just some damage that led to Stroll retiring. As I said, he was supposed to retire before he came, as that's why he was coming into the pits the first time. It just so happened that the penalty landed at that time. So that's all I really have to say for Lance Stroll. Unfortunately, another DNF, and that's not even the last of them yet. We still have one more to go. His teammate, Fernando Alonso, again had a better, seems to be what's happening with quite a few of these drivers. One is having a pretty terrible time, the other is having a fairly good time, unless you are the V-Card boys, who both had a terrible race. And I would actually say both the Sauber drivers had a brilliant race. As I'm saying, Fernando Alonso qualified 8th, finished 7th. Alonso was having quite a difficult time out there. He was really struggling, losing positions quite quickly at the start, saying that he was just, he had no speed on the straights. He then sort of spun off. He was then noted for an unsafe rejoin. And then he really just sort of spent the rest of the race battling it out with Gasly. What I will say as well, very much like the Saubers, very nice to see Alonso back in the fight. Like, I know he was struggling out there. I know it's probably not his best performance, but it's nice to see him actually fighting for points. My God, it's been quite a long time. Like, he has had quite a long string of not really fighting and actually battling for points. And he was doing that out there today. So that was very nice to see. That's all I really have to say for the Aston Martin guys. Nice to see them sort of pulling it back. But all right, moving on to the big ones now. Oscar Piastri qualified 4th, finished 3rd. You know something? Did I actually expect Piastri to get into the podium positions? Absolutely not. Absolutely not, because that man was struggling out there. He really struggled on the start to get heat into the tyres and lost a couple places. And then on the rejoin, I had a much better time. On the restart, sorry, had a much better time, and then just kind of slipped away, and then was just kind of running his own little race for quite a while, wasn't he? He managed to keep himself out of trouble. Piastri had some really decent pace, actually. He just couldn't seem to get past Russell. I will say that Mercedes was quick, but all the pace that they had kind of disappeared. So interesting that he couldn't get past. But as I said, 90% of the track. But to be fair, 90% of the track you couldn't actually overtake on. So I can see why he was struggling to get past Russell. Has benefited massively from his teammate's error, shall we say. Not phenomenal for McLaren in their fight in the constructors, because Ferrari did outscore them. Let's move on to Lando Norris, and then we'll come on to the Ferrari boys. So Lando Norris qualified 3rd, finished 10th. Lando had a great start to the race. He could have very nearly taken the lead, but obviously he's going up against Max Verstappen. Max Verstappen, if there is a lead to take, Max Verstappen's taking that lead. And then he just kind of ran around chasing the gearbox of Max for a while. Couldn't really get close enough to Max to actually make any moves. Oh, and then Alex Albon's wing mirror came off and the controversy began. So the wing mirror, let me try and get this right. The wing mirror was sat towards the end of the pit straight, but on the actual track. The FIA, off the absolute rails, had just waved yellows. And we'll come on and talk about the FIA shortly, but had just waved yellows, and Lando went through the yellows but did not reduce his pace. And was then awarded a 10-second stop-and-go penalty for not reducing his pace under yellow flag conditions. Now listen, was it a slam dunk penalty? Yes, it was. 100% Lando deserved to get a penalty. However, I do believe, and I actually think Bernie Collins did actually say that in the rule book, a 10-second stop-and-go penalty is the penalty for not slowing down under yellows. But it just seemed a bit harsh because it just took him out of the race completely. It ruined his race. And I just don't think that the crime fits the punishment, or the punishment fits the crime, if that makes any sense. And now listen, the FIA will argue that there is the safety aspect of it, that not slowing down under yellow flags is not safe. However, my counter argument to that is, why the hell did you not put a VSC in? In all seriousness, there was debris all over the track. There was a wing mirror on the track, and rather than just call a VSC, neutralise the field, get it all cleared, they just let it sit under double yellows for what, 4 laps? Was it 4 laps? Yeah, it was 4 laps. And in those 4 laps, Valtteri Bottas went over the wing mirror and we had 2 punctures. And then we got a safety car. Like, I just don't think, if safety is your number one priority, which listen, I don't doubt that it is, if safety is the number one priority, then the virtual safety car should have been deployed as soon as that wing mirror was noticed. There is no way you were going to get it cleared without neutralising the field. When the safety car was out, they actually ended up having to drive through the pit so that the marshals could get out and get the track cleared. So surely you'd just be as well putting a VSC out. Do you know what the lovely thing about a VSC is? You can deploy it and you can take it in whenever you want. They can be halfway through a lap. They can be halfway around the track. It doesn't matter where they are around the track. You can deploy and you can pull in a virtual safety car whenever you want. It's virtual. That's the reason in it. It doesn't need to be a full safety car. If you're not entirely too sure if you need the safety car or not, at least put the VSC out to neutralise the field. And then, do you know what? If you don't need it, perfect, call it in. It's not like the actual safety car where they have to do the full laps distance because they have to come back into the pits. Like, you can just put a VSC out. I don't know what's so difficult about it. Now listen, the penalty is the penalty. I think it is a bit extreme, to be quite frank. However, on the flip side of that, Max Verstappen knew exactly what he was doing. He knew exactly. This is what happens when you go up against a 4-time world champion, and this is why he is a 4-time world champion. That man knew, he just knew that the double waved yellows, he's seen them way in the distance. He made sure to lift off the acceleration so that there was a reduction in his pace. Even if you look at the telemetry, it would show there. And he knew exactly what he was doing when he radioed GP and said, go and make sure that Lando Norris reduced his pace, because I don't think he did. Because I can see in my mirrors that he has gained on me during these double yellows. And GP came back, and what did he say? Lando Norris has in fact not reduced his pace during the double yellows. We are sending that up to race control. So Jonathan Wheatley would have been on the blower to race control, and it's a slam dunk penalty for Norris, but I do just think it is a bit extreme. I actually cannot believe that the FIA waited 4 laps before they deployed a safety car. 4 laps, a driver running over it, and 2 punctures before we got a safety car. That is absolute madness to me. That is Michael Massey levels of crazy. Like, this race got the full Michael Massey treatment. The full Michael Massey treatment. If you had told me Michael Massey was the race director this race, I'd have believed you. I'd have been like, yeah, sounds about right. The FIA was a complete mess today. What a absolute fucking joke. As I said, I do not understand why we didn't just get a virtual safety car. There's actually been a few times this season where the conversation of why has the FIA not put out the VSC yet? Like, why are we still waiting? And it's just, here we are. It's happened again. Why did we have to wait 4 laps? Like, I just don't understand it. There's the reason that the virtual safety car is there. Use it. Jesus goddamn Christ. Now listen, I understand that being the race director is a pretty hard job. And since they fired Niels Vittich and that Rui Marquez, who took over from them, has been given a pretty shit hand given the fact that he's had to be the race director for F1 Academy, F2 and F1 this weekend. Huge jobs, do not get me wrong, but it just seems that maybe there was a little bit of common sense lacking in the decision making that was going out. In terms of the actual penalty, that does actually go to the race stewards. It does go to the stewards who decide the penalties, and as Bernie Collins said, they will sit with all the sort of violations you can get and what the penalties for them are. 10-second stop and go penalty, it may be what that type of violation calls for. I do just think it's pretty extreme. We've not seen one of them in ages, and I actually thought they were trying to phase them out. So I was quite surprised to see it come back. What I will say is I'm not too sure if the FIA president, Mohammed Ben Sulayem, has said to Rui Marquez that the FIA need to be a bit stricter. Well, maybe not Rui Marquez, or said to the stewards, sorry, that the punishments need to be a bit stricter, because the stewards were on fire today throwing out penalties. They were going wild with it. They were non-stop, and everyone was getting penalties at one point. Andrea Stella, team principal, was actually interviewed by, I think it was Ted Kravitz after the race, and he said that the penalties shouldn't just be decided by what a rule book says. I think he actually said a rule book with a load of dust on top of it. He thinks that the penalties should be done on sort of proportion and specificity, and that both of those things were missing in the decision, the ruling decision on Lando Norris's penalty, and that actually if they'd looked at the whole thing, maybe the penalty would have been a bit lesser, and that we should look at proportionality and specificity when dealing out the penalties. Not something that the FIA usually does. They usually just do slam dunk. Here's what it says in the rule book. There you are. They have had some new ones this weekend, to be fair. That one place grid penalty, that's a new one. Haven't seen that before. So, yeah, as I said, that 10-second stop and go penalty really just ruined. It just lifted Lando and stuck him at the back, and he did well to finish 10th. I mean, he was lightning fast on that final stint after he served his penalty. He was just absolutely putting in an effort. So great to see there. Very unfortunate for him. Very unfortunate for McLaren in their battle with Ferrari for the constructors, because that has really tightened up. We will talk about that at the end of the episode, just as we sort of look forward to Abu Dhabi. But again, a twofold weekend for McLaren, because they've obviously just gone and scored a podium with Oscar, a surprise podium with Oscar, but then they've also got a driver that's gotten 1 point and was handed an incredibly insane penalty. All right, moving on to the Ferrari drivers, and Carlos Sainz qualified 7th, finished 6th. Sainz was just kind of running all right. He was doing what he needed to do. He was, keeping himself in contention, and then unfortunately got a puncture. Where he got his puncture on the track was very unfortunate, because it did mean, similar to Lewis Hamilton, that they had to go round the entire track again with a puncture before they could get into the pit. So a little bit of a shame for Carlos Sainz. Not the best result from him, to be honest with you, but listen, what I will say is Qatar was crazy and insane, but the fact that the only overtaking opportunity was that turn 1 corner did just make for a really dull 90% of a lap. And if you were not in somebody's DRS, you were never going to get there. So I'm not surprised that some of these drivers finished where they finished, because I think had the overtaking opportunities been better at other points in the track, we would have seen quite a different race, I think. But well done to Carlos Sainz anyway. His teammate Charles Leclerc, who qualified 5th, finished 2nd. Fantastic little jump off the lead for Charles Leclerc, getting past Piastri. Obviously lost the place on the restart, did manage to get it back. He then just really kept himself out of trouble. Just kept his race going. At one point was maybe putting in a little bit of a fight to Lando, but did just then kind of back off. And as I said, just kept himself to himself, kept his race going. And I was quite happy with him coming home 3rd. Unexpectedly, him to get a podium, I was very, very happy at that. And then he was just there, right place, right time, to pick up the pieces of Lando Norris's penalty, and just managed to propel himself up to P2. So well done to Charles Leclerc, and he is feeling very happy. I think he's feeling very happy that they have managed to extend the championship fight to Abu Dhabi. As I said, we'll come and talk about Abu Dhabi in a second. But what I will say is the safety car obviously did work fairly well for Leclerc, because he managed that he could get a free pit stop. So that did work in his favour. Listen, well done to Carlos Sainz for securing some points. Well done to Charles Leclerc for a great wee podium there. All right, and moving on to George Russell, who qualified 2nd, started 1st, finished 4th. Kind of expected a bit of a better result from Russell, because that Mercedes was looking a lot quicker, and he obviously got the promotion into P1. Did I ever think he was going to keep P1 when the race started? No, he was going up against Max Verstappen. That being said, I did expect him to finish a little bit better than where he did originally, because as I said, that Mercedes was looking lightning fast, but their race pace was just terrible today. Absolutely terrible. Toto Wolff said after the session that he said that the balance on the cars was terribly off on different ways for each of the drivers, and they were wrestling those cars around. I don't know what the hell changed between the qualifying session and the race, because it took part at basically the same time, and actually the track was a little bit cooler, so the conditions were a bit better out there. But my God, really struggled out there, and as I said, the pace just really disappeared Obviously, the pace not being the only issue that plagued George Russell. A 7-second pit stop down at Mercedes. Russell was the first one to pit out of those front runners. And 7 seconds was the pit stop. 7 seconds. That's mental. That is mental coming from Mercedes. I think it was one of the rear tyres just really didn't want to come off. Sauber had a better pit stop because Sauber actually came in and pitted next and they had a better pit stop than Mercedes. So yeah, everything just seemed to be working against him, to be quite frank. But to be fair, fourth is not a terrible finish considering his teammate, Lewis Hamilton, was having probably the worst time out of quite a lot of the drivers on track, and it was DNF Central. So Lewis Hamilton, who qualified 6th, finished 12th. My God, Hamilton had a terrible time out there. He was noted for a false start, and it was indeed a false start. So slam dunk penalty there. That was the first of Hamilton's penalties, 5 seconds for that one. He then got stuck behind Perez for a while, couldn't make it past him. He was complaining over the radio that the car was being so slow. Bono coming back over and saying that it's underbalanced. Then we had a puncture for Hamilton. He was obviously, him and Sainz picked up punctures. That got fixed. Then when we had the safety car, he went into the pits, didn't put his speed limiter on, and then was actually speeding in the pit lane. So was handed a drive-through penalty for speeding in the pits, meaning that he came out last, and he did obviously manage to get his way up to 12th. But actually, when he got his drive-through penalty, he actually just asked the team, he was like, I just want to retire. Can I just retire the car? And the team came back over, Bono came back over and was like, no, please keep going, and please do not take yourself out of the race. And he could have actually just stopped the car and turned off the engine, completely within his right to do so, but that was quite hard to watch from Hamilton. He really struggled out there. And the fact that he's asking, Lewis Hamilton of all people is asking to DNF, that is wild. Absolutely insane. Again, the questions are being raised about whether he's actually going to finish the season with Mercedes. There's a lot of rumours. There was rumours ages ago that he was done after Brazil. Now there's rumours that that's it, he's out, he's not doing anymore. Again, I think it is just rumours. I don't think there's anything to it. Who was it that was asked? Lewis. Oh, it was Lewis was asked. Lewis was asked, how are you feeling about the next race? And he was like, listen, these races don't define my career at Mercedes. And Jenson Button said it very well, that nobody will really remember these races when they remember Hamilton at Mercedes. And he said he wants to kind of go out on as big a high as he can. So I don't see him not racing in Abu Dhabi. I also just don't feel like it's in Lewis's nature to just quit like that. I understand that he's saying certain things and he's being quite down on himself, and it's something that we're not really used to, but he is a racer. He is a true born racer through and through, and I just do not feel like he will throw in the towel so easily, even though he hates that goddamn car. My God, he hates that goddamn car. I think he actually said it when he was speaking to Craig Slater, Sky, and the media pen with Sky, and he was like, I hate that car. He's like, me and the car are not friends. Me and that car do not get along. On to Ferrari next year, and hopefully that is a bit of a clean slate for him. I get no idea how he'll get on at Ferrari, but we'll see what happens. And he actually did say in the post-race, he was like, I'm still standing. It's not how you fall, it's how you get back up. So I'll get back up tomorrow and I'll give it another shot next week. So Lewis Hamilton's not going anywhere. All right, finally, Sergio Perez qualified 9th. Did not finish. I don't really have a lot to say about Perez. He was noted for rejoining the track in an unsafe condition at one point, and he obviously DNF'd. He kind of spun on the track, and I think he lost drive, so I believe it's like a hydraulic problem. It was an engine problem, it was a reliability problem that he was out. What was most interesting is after the race, Sky Sports asked Christian Horner about Perez, and it seems that now the position is almost changed, which is very unlikely for Red Bull to sort of go down this way. And I'm a little bit surprised by it, that they're almost leaving it open to Checo. They are leaving it up to him to decide what he wants to do with his future, whether he wants to continue racing. Apparently the contract is there and it's up to him whether he wants to continue with that or whether he wants to bow out. If you listen to what Checo says, then he will be racing alongside Max and Red Bull in 2025. Apparently, as I said, I think in a previous episode, there is still apparently a meeting happening between the senior team at Red Bull to discuss Perez's future at the team. So maybe they will push him before he jumps. But if I was Perez, I would bow out. I understand that that's maybe not in the mentality of some of these drivers to just quit, and it's obviously not in the mentality of Perez, but he's had a shocker season, and it's just not getting any better, and I can't imagine he's going to do great things next week in Abu Dhabi, and that's all I've really got to say on Perez. His teammate, however, Max Verstappen qualified first, started second, finished first. Obviously, he got that penalty for driving unnecessarily slow. I do not believe he should have been handed the penalty, but that is an argument for another day, or just never again, because I don't fancy arguing about it anymore. His drive was superb. He is apparently pissed at George Russell. In the press conference after the race, he was talking about how both he and George were summoned to the stewards to discuss the situation, and he'd said that he'd never seen somebody behave like what George was behaving in that room, and that he lost all of his respect for George Russell. And apparently after the meeting had sort of had some quite frank words with George Russell. So he went into the session pissed off, but an angry Max is a fast Max, and it just shows, because he won that with ease. That was just go out there, get the job done. As soon as he got the lead in turn one, I was like, he's won the race. And do you know something? Do you know how I know this was one of those like classic Max Verstappen wins? Because we barely seen him. We barely seen him on the broadcast. We seen him at the first couple of bits, and then that was him up until the very end of the race, because he was not put under any pressure whatsoever. He was straight up chilling. In fact, actually, we seen him once through the broadcast, and that was for the double yellow incident. He was chilling. He was having a great time. And races like this show you why Max Verstappen is a 4-time world champion. Well done, Max Verstappen, on another great win. Now, looking forward to Abu Dhabi as we go into that race weekend. The final race of the season. There is only 8 points between Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc, and there are only 21 points between McLaren and Ferrari. These two are going down to the checkered flag. The fight for P2 and the fight for the Constructors' Championship are going down to the wire. They will be decided at the checkered flag in Abu Dhabi. Oh, it's exciting. It's very, very exciting. Who do I think will win it? I'm actually going to go full in Ferrari. And we'll discuss this obviously when we do our predictions, but I'm going Ferrari. Leclerc has said that Abu Dhabi should be a better track for them, and that they should be a lot closer to the McLarens. And everybody seems to think that, Abu Dhabi might actually not be as bad a track for Ferrari as what I originally thought. So very, very excited for that. So we will be watching that fight intently. And we will also be watching the fight for 6th, because that is still very close between Alpine, Haas and RB. Obviously, Esteban Ocon will not be racing there next week. He's obviously no longer an Alpine driver. So Jack Doohan will be taking his place. Can Jack Doohan score points on his inaugural Grand Prix? I don't know, but that is everything from a relentless, chaotic Grand Prix. These last Grand Prix are exhausting. There has not been a moment's breath for the past few Grand Prix. Brazil was chaos. Vegas was chaos. This race is chaos. Mexico wasn't too bad, but Mexico was feisty. Austin was feisty. Honestly, my God, I'm exhausted. Thank God the break is coming up, because that is one thing I will say. As much as I am going to miss Formula One and the race weekends and all of this kind of the excitement of everything, I think everybody just needs a break, including the fans. I think we all just need a bit of time out. But that is us for our penultimate race of the 2024 season. We'll be back very soon with our predictions for Abu Dhabi. I will see you then. Have a great rest of your day. Love you. Bye.